They say a heart attack tells the truth about your life in one rude sentence. Mine came on a Tuesday at 9:17 a.m. between a black coffee and a list of small chores I thought mattered. My name is Robert. I'm 72. I have one son. I own a small factory. And until that morning, I still believed there would always be more time to fix the things I had let slide. Conversations, apologies, the way pride throws its weight around the room and makes everyone sit quietly. It began as pressure, like a heavy fist pressing through my sternum into my back. I gripped the counter and waited for it to pass. It didn't. I called my son, Ethan. "Dad, can we talk later?" he said, over a rapid clatter of keyboard clicks. I could hear a trading stream in the background, a commentator shouting about momentum like it was oxygen. "Market's strong today. I'm in 3 calls. You okay?" "I need to get to the hospital," I said. "Now." He exhaled, irritated at the timing of my mortality. "Can you call an Uber? I'm monitoring an entry. If I step away, I'll miss the next leg. We're going higher." "I can't drive," I said. "I don't think I should wait." "Don't do anything crazy," he said. "I'll call you this afternoon." The line went dead. People like to say, "family first." It's one of those phrases that sounds like a promise and behaves like a wish. I called 911. The operator kept me talking until the siren found my street, and the paramedics found my front door and then found me, smaller than I had felt yesterday, folded against the kitchen island, like a man apologizing to his own house. At the hospital, a doctor spoke in the brisk grammar of emergency rooms. "You're in an active myocardial infarction," he said. "We stabilized you. Angio shows severe occlusion. We need to do bypass. Open heart. Today." I nodded because there are moments in life when a nod is the only word that fits. Then came the number. "For surgery, ICU, and post-op," the administrator said, not unkindly. "The estimate is $400,000. Insurance covers a portion, but we need a deposit or a secured guarantee before we roll. Policy." I called Ethan again. He picked up on the second ring, voice high with adrenaline that didn't belong to me. "Dad, I was just about to call. We broke resistance. Listen, don't let them scare you into bad decisions. The market's about to run. If I sell here, I'll leave 50, maybe 100 grand on the table. Give me a day, maybe 2. We'll do it right." "Ethan," I said, tasting copper, "they need a guarantee now." "It's crazy to sell into strength," he said. "Dad, trust me. This is the move we've been waiting for. I'll make more in a week than they're asking for a deposit. Then we pay cash, no problem. Why rush?" "Because my chest doesn't care about your chart," I said. He went quiet. "I'll call you back," he said. He didn't. When the call ended, a hand touched my forearm. "Mr. Hargrove?" People always mispronounce Hale. I let them. Today I corrected it. "Hale," I said. "Hale," the voice repeated. I turned and saw Mark, my next-door neighbor, the young man in the navy hoodie who shovels his walk before the snow has finished deciding it's serious. We wave. We borrow tools. We talk about weather like it's a third neighbor. He looked scared, but only in his eyes. The rest of him was steady. "The EMT called me," he said softly. "They know I'm your emergency contact if they can't reach family. I'm sorry. What do you need?" "I need to live," I said. "Apparently that's expensive." He looked at the administrator, then back at me. "How much?" "400, I said. He didn't flinch. "I'm calling my bank," he said. "Sit tight." "Mark," I said, No. Mr. Hale, he said, this is not charity. This is a bridge. People build bridges. I can sign a personal loan now. You can formalize it later with your lawyer, please. 10 minutes, 3 phone calls, and 1 terrifying signature later, the administrator had what the policy needed. They wheeled me away. I remember the ceiling tiles moving above me like slow white clouds, and a nurse's voice telling me what the surgeon would do, and a sudden private thought. I am about to learn which of my sentences are still true. When I woke, I had a zipper of stitches and a machine singing a song made of beeps. A nurse said, "You're here," in a way that made me believe her. Later, a surgeon smiled the way tired men smile when the worst is behind them, and the next worst is charting. "It went well," he said. "You're lucky." Lucky is the word people use when the world doesn't punish us for our delays. Mark visited every day. He brought a small notebook where he wrote down everything the nurses said about meds and exercises, and what soreness is normal and what soreness is a phone call. He didn't talk about the money except to say, "We'll paper it when you're ready." Ethan texted 2 days later. "How are you?" I replied, "Alive." He sent a thumbs-up emoji that looked emptier than a gas tank on a hill. By week 2, I could sit up without swearing. I started tallying the numbers because men like me think the math will keep us from drowning. 400,000. Interest. A neighbor's name on a loan because my son wanted to catch an extra 3% on a chart celebrating itself. I asked Mark to bring me my safe. He did. I called my lawyer, Priya. She's the kind of lawyer who writes emails that sound like court orders even when they're grocery lists. "Priya," I said, "I want to transfer 51% of the factory to Mark." "Are you sure?" she asked. Lawyers are paid to ask that question. Good ones ask twice. "I am," I said. "He saved my life. He's educated. Industrial engineering, wasn't it?" I nodded to Mark. He looked uncomfortable. "He knows operations better than I ever did. And I want someone in charge who values people more than percentages." Mark shook his head. "I didn't sign that loan for equity, Mr. Hale." "I know," I said. "That's why you're the one. The factory is small. We make precision brackets and fittings other people use to make bigger things. For 40 years, I treated it like a family. Not perfect, but ours. The last few years, I'd been coasting, trusting old purchase orders to keep arriving. Prices climbed. Margins thinned. One more repair waited until another month. Mark walked the floor the week I came home. He talked to Alma, my forewoman, who can smell a misaligned jig from 20 feet away. He asked questions that made foreheads lift. Why do we run the press in that order? Why are we paying rush shipping for parts that sit a week on a shelf? Who decided we buy bolts in boxes of 1,000 when we scrap 80 every quarter because the coating fails? Within a month, he had reorganized flow, renegotiated 2 vendor contracts, and killed a vanity SQ that ate time and never made money. He set up a safe work bonus that paid the line if everyone went home with the same number of fingers they came with. He hired a kid from the tech school who could program the CNC with his eyes closed, and then taught him to keep them open when he walked. We stopped losing money. We started making some. The first month we finished in the black. Mark brought donuts and then refused to eat one because he had a rule about sugar. Alma called him ridiculous and ate 2 for him. Ethan visited once. He stood in my living room and looked at the incision on my chest like it was a graph that didn't make sense. "You look good," he said, which is what people say when they don't know what to say. "I was going to stop by earlier, but the market went higher," I said. He grinned excited again. Exactly. I knew it. I knew if I waited, I'd catch the real move. Dad, you should see my P&L. I've seen your father's incision, I said. That's enough charts for me. He rolled his eyes, small like he used to when he was 12, and I told him homework matters. You just don't get it, he said. This is how wealth is built now. Not in factories, in timing. Timing is kinder to men who show up when someone's calling, I said. He left. The rally continued, until it didn't. I don't know exactly what broke. I only know how breakage sounds when it happens in a voice. The call came at 2:13 a.m., 2 months later. Dad, he said, finally calling me Dad like a boy with a scraped knee. I need help. What happened? I asked. Everything, he said. Liquidations, margin call, a hack. One exchange froze withdrawals and the other paused for maintenance right before it dumped. I took a loan against my portfolio to double down and, Dad, the loan is due. The rates adjust next week. I can't roll it. I need 200 right now to prevent default. I'll pay you back, I swear. Sell what you have left, I said quietly. If I sell down here, I lock in losses, he said. We're due for a bounce. Ethan, I said, you refused to sell when I was on a gurney because you thought we'd go higher. Now you refuse to sell because we went lower. There's always a reason to keep your hands off the wheel. I just need a few days, he pleaded. Don't do this to me. Son, I said, I don't have 200 free. Your neighbor took a loan to keep me alive. I just gave him control of the factory. I'm paying him back the way a man pays back a person he owes, slowly, with interest, and with the humility of someone who knows he wouldn't be here without a signature. He hung up angry. Shame often pretends to be anger. It gets better tips. Things got worse for him. Brokers called. Friends he'd bragged to wanted their short-term loans back. Taxes, which do not care about your feelings, arrived with penalties that do not care about your explanations. He stopped answering my calls. Then he missed a hearing. The court held him in contempt. He spent 6 months in county, the kind of jail that offers hard truths and bad coffee. I visited once. He looked like a man who has slept under lights that never turn off. I can't believe you won't bail me, he said. I can, I said. This is the only language you've listened to in years. He swore at me then, soft and ugly. I left. In the car I cried, not because of what he said, but because I understood why he said it. I had raised him to believe that money catches you when you jump. I had forgotten to teach him that people do. On the day his release date approached, I met with Priya. We paid the debts that could be paid without encouraging the habits that created them. We arranged installment plans for the ones that deserved education attached. We settled the contempt by making sure there was nothing left to refuse. And then I wrote a letter. Ethan, when you were 8, you fell off your bike and blamed the hill. I told you the hill was always going to be a hill. You could learn it, or it would keep teaching you the same lesson. I didn't bail you out the first day because I wanted the lesson to have a chance. I paid what I paid today because I want you to have a life after the lesson. I will not hand you money. I will offer you work. If you want to stand where a man stands, come to the factory gate at 5:45 a.m. on Monday. Ask Alma for a pair of gloves and a broom. Do what she says. She does not care that you are my son. Neither do the machines. Show up for 90 days without lying, without being late, and without explaining why the hill is unfair. On day 91, we'll talk about a real job. Dad. I left the letter with his release paperwork. He didn't call that night. He didn't call the next. On Monday, Alma texted me a photograph at 5:44 a.m. It was of a man standing at the chain-link gate in a second-hand work jacket, shivering into a dawn that didn't have the decency to be warm. He looked smaller and more dangerous to himself than he used to. He also looked there. At 6:00, Alma handed him gloves. "You sweep," she said, pointing at the grime that falls off a day of metal and men. "You empty bins. You do not come into my office unless there is blood or fire. If you're slow, we talk. If you're lazy, we don't." "Yes, ma'am," he said. He swept. He emptied bins. He kept his head down and his ears open. He tried, on day 3, to offer advice about optimizing the press schedule. Alma stared at him until the idea shrank to a manageable size. "You don't get to optimize until you stop missing the corners," she said, tapping a line of dust along the wall. "Corners tell me who you are." He started staying late. When the others left, he practiced wrapping pallets so tight a storm would have to file paperwork to move them. He asked the kid at the CNC to explain the program like he was being graded. He brought Mark a coffee and apologized for the way he'd spoken of factories like they were antique hobbies. Mark accepted the coffee and the apology, and then assigned him to parts staging, the kind of work that teaches you how everything touches everything else. He failed once. Badly. He mislabeled a crate and a customer almost built the wrong thing with the right parts. Alma caught it. She used the quiet, slicing tone she saves for preventable mistakes. He took it. He didn't argue. He came in early the next day and rebuilt the staging map with her. He learned what first in, first out means when a late delivery becomes a broken promise. On day 32, he found Alma in her office. "I was overdrawing on my life," he said simply. "I thought the next trade would fix the last one. I thought you could day trade character." She stared, then snorted. "Write that on a sticky note and put it on the time clock," she said. "Maybe it'll save me a lecture later." Mark kept doing what Mark does, moving things an inch the right way until the whole room lines up. We won a contract we had no business competing for because our on-time record was suddenly a brag instead of an apology. He replaced one furnace before it failed and saved us 3 days of downtime we didn't have to write emails about. He instituted a simple rule. No one leaves for the day until the man next to him knows what to do tomorrow. It made us slower for a week and faster for the rest of the quarter. On day 91, Ethan walked into my office. He didn't sit until I pointed at the chair. He put his gloves on the table. They were torn at the fingertips. His hands looked like they had been introduced to work and decided to become friends. "Alma says you show up," I said. "I do," he said. "Alma says you don't argue when someone who knows better tells you how it is," I said. "I don't," he said. "Alma says you have the kind of brain that can be useful if it ever stops telling itself stories," I said. He smiled carefully. "She says that?" "She says it with more sarcasm," I said. "Would you like to learn the floor for real?" "Yes," he said. "You'll report to Alma," I said. "Not to me. You'll rotate through staging, presses, and quality. You will take the OSHA class without texting. You will watch Mark's weekly board review and say nothing unless he asks a question that starts with your name. You will be paid the same as any first-year hire. If you stay a year and Alma says you are not a liability, we'll talk about training you as a shift lead. If at any point you tell me the hill is unfair, I will tell you the hill is a hill. Agreed?" "Agreed," he said. He worked. He learned to love the click of a gauge finding true. He learned why good enough is the enemy of fits every time. He learned to fix his own mistakes the way you clean up a spill before it becomes a stain. He started bringing Alma problems with 3 possible solutions instead of 1 complaint with 3 excuses. When the night shift needed a fill-in, he volunteered. When a coworker's mother got sick, he traded Saturdays without announcing his sacrifice like a parade. I watched, but not like a hawk, more like a father who is finally learning to trust the evidence. 6 months after Ethan started, Mark repaid the last of the loan that kept me alive. He brought me the paperwork and a bag of bagels because he had finally made peace with carbs. "You don't owe me," I said. "I never did," he said. "You gave me a chance to run a place the way I think places should be run. You and Alma do the rest." That afternoon, I called Priya. "Addendum," I said. "I want to formalize something." 2 weeks later, I stood in the break room, fluorescent lights, coffee that tastes like determination, and told the crew what we'd done. "We created the Hale Family Fund," I said. 10% of profits go there. It does 2 things. Pays the education costs for any employee who wants to learn something that makes them better here, and builds a reserve to help a worker cover emergency medical costs without asking a neighbor to sign his name on a loan. The board is Mark, Alma, me, and 1 rotating seat voted on by all of you. Alma raised an eyebrow. "Democracy," she said. "Brave. Stubborn," I said. "And fair." After the meeting, I found Ethan in the loading bay, counting straps. "You wrote a letter," he said quietly. "I read it 100 times." "I wrote it because I didn't know how else to talk to you," I said. "You talked fine," he said. "I just didn't speak the language yet." We walked the floor together. Machines hummed. Men and women measured, lifted, checked, signed. I showed him the old photo on the wall of me and his mother on the day we bought the building, young enough to think a leaky roof was a personality test. He touched the frame with his fingers, the way a man might touch a memory to make sure it's still alive. "Dad," he said, "I used to think money was a scoreboard." "It's a tool," I said, "and a test. And sometimes it's a thief. Mostly it's loud. Family is quiet unless you tend it." He nodded, eyes bright in a way that had nothing to do with tears and everything to do with relief. "Mark told me you almost didn't let him help you," he said. "I almost trusted my pride more than his courage," I said. "I'm glad he didn't let me." We stood by the door as the afternoon shift came in. He said hello to a man I didn't know he knew by name. He laughed at something Alma said that she swore wasn't a joke. He picked up a clipboard without being asked and started checking the palette I had been about to check. He missed the same 2 corners I used to miss. He went back and swept them. That night, in my chair by the window, I thought about the list I'd made the morning of my heart attack. Replace the porch light, oil the hinges, pay the property tax. Ordinary things with deadlines that don't nag until they become a problem. I added a line at the bottom and underlined it twice. Keep choosing the harder thing that makes tomorrow easier. I don't know how many years I have left. I don't know whether the hill we live on will get steeper or kinder. I do know this. A neighbor signed his name so I could still have one. A lawyer turned paper into armor. A forewoman turned a boy into a worker 1 corner at a time. A son decided to become the kind of person who shows up before the sun does. I gave away control so we could have a future. I kept my love and changed its terms from rescue to respect. If you're looking for a moral you can fold into your wallet and forget until you need it, here's mine. You cannot day trade character. You buy it a shift at a time. You hold through the boredom. You ignore the loud tips from people who don't know your life. And if you're lucky, when the siren finally finds your street, someone will arrive with a signature, a broom, or a letter. Something small and stubborn that makes you possible again. My name is Robert. I had a heart attack. The hospital asked for more money than I had in reach. My son chased a chart when I needed a ride. My neighbor bought me time. I gave him the reins. He built a place where my son could learn to be new. That's not revenge. That's repair. And repair, I've learned, is the most faithful kind of love.